On October 7, 2023, a Palestinian group, Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip, launched a surprise attack against Israel, resulting in at least 1,400 casualties. In response, Israel carried out airstrikes, causing more than 2,700 casualties. But what is the cause of this conflict? Stay in the video and discover the reason for this conflict. The fuel for these conflicts is the same that has ignited all the disputes in human history up to this day. Land. Under the war, the State of Israel was created under the Israeli war, and Palestinians live there to this day. All the chaos began here, in Europe at the end of the 19th century, here in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The empire was in shambles, with various nations seeking independence and a nationalist movement taking hold of all of them. Amidst this nationalism emerges Theodor Herzl. He wanted changes for the Jewish people, so Herzl sees only one way out of so much mistreatment: the creation of a Jewish state, and he establishes a nationalist concept, Zionism, to advocate support for the establishment of a homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine. But by the end of the 19th century, the ones in charge here were the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire was growing, expanding, dominating, and thriving until, during World War I, the British made some promises in exchange for favors. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration promised to create a Jewish national home in Palestine, despite the majority of the population being Arab. This triggered controversy in the region due to the religious significance of Jerusalem. The British gained control of Palestine in 1923 and encouraged Jewish immigration, but this led to tensions with the Palestinians. During this period of dominance, the British attempted to bring order to the chaos by implementing rules that did not alleviate the tensions between them. As a result, the division between Christians, Jews, and Arabs gave rise to a sense of nationalism among the Arabs, leading to the Great Revolt of 1936 against the British seeking independence. With the help of Jewish militias, the British suppressed the Arabs in 1939. With the creation of the White Paper in 1939, the United Kingdom hoped to reduce tensions between Jews and Palestinians by balancing their populations, limiting land purchases by Jews, and ultimately establishing an independent state for both peoples to coexist peacefully. However, these restrictions left the Jews deeply disappointed. To make matters worse, the outbreak of World War II led thousands of Jews to migrate to Palestine to escape Nazism, further escalating tensions between the two groups. As the British mandate in the Middle East was coming to an end, the British decided to hand over Palestine to the newly formed United Nations. The UN would divide the territory between Palestinians and Jews and take control of Jerusalem to prevent further conflicts. The president of the General Assembly responsible for this significant cartography was Oswaldo Aranha. The UN, with the 1947 partition plan, made an incredibly terrible division that was unfavorable for both Jews and Arabs. If the situation between Jews and Palestinians was already bad, it was about to get much worse. A few hours before the United Kingdom officially withdrew, the Jews declared the independence of Israel and established the State of Israel on May 14, 1948. The Arabs, upset by the UN's division and even more outraged by the creation of the new State of Israel, declared war against the Israelis the day after Israel's independence. Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen joined. Against all odds, Israel managed to raise an impressive army and defeated the Arab League in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The defeat was so overwhelming for the Arab League that, after this period of wars, it came to be called by the Palestinians themselves as the catastrophe. They signed an armistice in 1949, and in the end, Israel ended up occupying even more territory than the original UN resolution. 700,000 Palestinians left their homes and sought refuge in other regions of Palestine, leaving the Arabs bitter over a defeat and nurturing a desire for revenge that would last for the next 20 years. In 1967, once again, a coalition of Arab nations invaded the territory in Palestine where Israel was occupying, aiming to put an end to the Israelis once and for all. and once again, Israel would fight alone and emerge victorious. The Six-Day War was a humiliating defeat for the Muslims and a decisive victory for the Israelis. From now on, Israel would conquer even more territory, from the Golan Heights to the Sinai Peninsula, all the way to Jerusalem. It was all Israel's now. Israel possessed a war machine that no one in the Arab world seemed capable of stopping. But the Muslims tried again, and this time on Israel's holiest day, Yom Kippur. With nearly twice as many soldiers, Egypt, with the support of Syria, Iraq, Cuba, and the Soviet Union, attacked Israel, backed by the United States. But in the end, once again, Israel achieved the best results in the Yom Kippur War. But tensions began to improve from 1979 with the peace agreement between Israel and Egypt. Israel returned the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt, and in return, Egypt officially recognized the State of Israel. Then Yasser Arafat entered the scene. The desire for revenge remained strong among the Palestinians and Muslims, leading to renewed conflicts with Israel in the 1970s and 1980s. In response, Israel launched a counteroffensive and destroyed military bases in Lebanon. To retaliate against Israel's actions, groups of Muslim guerrillas formed Hezbollah in 1985. This organization is considered a legitimate resistance group against Israel by Palestinians and Muslims, but is labeled as a terrorist group by much of the Western world and even by the Arab League. Despite this, Israel continued to expand its territory by establishing Jewish communities in the West Bank and Gaza, which led to a series of uprisings by the local population known as the Intifadas. Amid this turmoil, Hamas emerged, a group that aimed for the liberation of Palestinians and the end of Israel, but opposed the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO. Things began to change with negotiations between Israel and Arafat's PLO, ultimately resulting in the Oslo Accords in 1993. In this agreement, the PLO recognized the State of Israel, and Israel, in turn, recognized the PLO as the governing authority of Palestine. A year later, it was Jordan's turn to accept Israel's sovereignty. But from 1995, Hamas began a series of attacks against Israeli civilians, which prompted an aggressive response from Israel, ending the period of peace in the region. These events led to the Second Intifada, resulting in the deaths of thousands of Jews and Palestinians. To protect Jews from these Hamas attacks, the Prime Minister began constructing a wall in the West Bank where these Jewish communities were located. However, Palestinians accused the Israelis of encroaching on their territory during the wall's construction. So, when Arafat passed away in 2005, Hamas took control of the Palestinian government, further escalating tension between the two peoples. In the last 15 years, Hamas has launched rockets and heavy attacks against Israel, and in response, Israel has reacted forcefully to these attacks. The most recent being now on October 7th. The conflict remains unresolved, with periodic wars and little political will for peace. The situation is unsustainable and without significant changes. And in the midst of all this, those who suffer most are the innocent people. Leave hashtag Israel-Palestine peace in the comments. Because the people suffer, the people die. The people want peace. And we want to express our deep sympathies to the people who are suffering due to the conflicts in Israel and Palestine. It is sad to witness the pain and suffering that so many face on a daily basis. To the next.